Welcome back to Yaffee Live. This is the Talk Monster, and I am Tennessee's voice of reason, Chattanooga's conservative conscience. Glad you have joined the show today, and it's Thursday, and that means joining us right now as well is Brandon Lewis. He's the founder of the Tennessee Conservative. You can read all his stuff, see all his stuff at TennesseeConservativeNews.com, and of course on their social media as well. This video podcast of this segment will also show up on their website, TennesseeConservativeNews.com, as well as my Facebook page. So like the Yaffee Facebook page. Brandon, how are you, sir?
And I'm great. I love the shirt. If it
Thank you.
came in a tank top, I would request one.
You and our tank tops. You just have to show off the guns, I guess.
Well, I've turned into my father over the years. He used to wear them, and it would always embarrass me. And now, unless I'm on video or something, I'm typically in gym shorts and a tank top because I go to the gym at the end of
Does
the
it
day.
embarrass your
So
kid?
no, I think they've grown used to it.
Okay. By the way, people are wondering, I'm wearing a talk radio t-shirt, so we do need to get some. I think we're working on that actually to give away. So yes, I am wearing one of those. Let's get to the news here. One of the stories you have on your site is the fact that the NAACP, they lost their first lawsuit against the Tennessee redistricting. Not too surprising, I think, but still a big deal.
Yeah, so essentially their big thing was that the 1972 law, which only allowed for redistricting after the decennial, which means every 10 years, I assume, census, claimed that Lee's verbiage to facilitate the 2026 elections in his proclamation calling for the session didn't repeal the law beforehand. And of course, that was struck down. I'm not certain how these other lawsuits will play out. I know that there are a couple that have been cobbled together by the courts because the arguments are very similar. And so we will see, what is remaining that may still potentially get some purchase. But I think given everything that's happened all across the nation with redistricting, I doubt that we will see anything change here unless we get a ruling from the federal level of the Supreme Court that this isn't what should be happening.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. The real issue seems to be in our state down south, or actually, well, down south or to the west, I guess, but Alabama seems to be having the bigger fight than Tennessee when it comes to the redistricting stuff. But we'll have to see. Now, you have a lot of stories here. I didn't say we would talk about any of them, but a lot of bills have been signed into law. I didn't know if there was any of those that you wanted to focus on before we move on.
None that really, leap to mind. Essentially, what happens is after the legislature approves all the bills, the governor has an opportunity to veto them or to let them pass without his signature. And to my knowledge, I can't recall him ever vetoing a bill. I have seen him allow things to go into law without his signature related to emergency powers and a few other things. So
Yeah.
all of the illegal immigration reforms that we had been talking about for the past few months, so far so good, have all been signed into law.
Okay, that's really good. That's exactly right. So I wanted to move on to this story then. A Republican-led fiscal review committee greenlights contracts for companies holding contrasting ideologies to Tennessee values and legislation. So talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, there was a bill passed that called the Restore Trust in Public Health Messaging Act, and it approved a number of contracts for these companies that are mainly related to state facilitated TennCare, but many of those corporations have missions or values or ties to other institutions that directly conflict or are in violation with some of the legislation that's been passed. And so, for example, McKinsey and Company is a global management consulting firm. They partner with the World Economic Forum. We have said that has no place in Tennessee. Consulting services with the World Health Organization, which is another organization that we've been codified that their rules do not apply. Advisement to Pfizer, bans. There are lots of different bans on jurisdiction of global organizations. And, the Public Health Foundation distributes and promotes materials with vaccines that are inconsistent with the labeling laws in Tennessee. And it prohibits the state executive branch or the rest from promoting, distributing, or endorsing information about FDA-regulated products. And this all kind of came about because of what happened during COVID, is that, these publicly held corporations use their influence in the legislature to push their products. I mean, who wouldn't want that? I mean, I wish there was some way I could go lobby that would make painting contractors coach with me in the Tennessee legislature would be really convenient, and then have the state take my tax dollars and promote it to the painters and then make it mandatory. And so that's what a lot of these laws were passed to make sure that we don't get in a situation again where our government is peddling the products of these corporations, especially when many of them have adverse effects. And we know that there are no consequences for those corporations or the state when people experience those.
Yeah, well, very interesting. This next story, kind of related. I saw the headline. I was like, oh, I got to get Brandon's take on this. I know he's going to have a take on this. So Tennessee and Nashville apparently spend billions of taxpayer dollars and funds drawing for the Super Bowl. Because it is coming to Nashville in 2030, so.
Yeah. So when you have the billions of dollars that were spent on the Titans Stadium, when they do polling across the state, like, it's wildly unpopular. I think like maybe only 30% of the electorate support it. And that includes like a wide swath of Democrats. So it's not just a Republican issue. And, we've looked at the data over the years with watchdog groups. And when these large events come into town, they always claim that they're going to produce this massive economic benefit. And often it's a third of what has happened. And we've seen, Tennessee continue to hand out these billions and millions of dollars of taxpayer subsidies to these companies that promise jobs and infrastructure. And when the jobs aren't delivered, and when the company picks up and leaves or fires all its workers or never even starts construction, like the Blue Oval City, where Tennessee taxpayers are left holding the bag. And this is a bipartisan issue that conservative Republicans agree on. Most Democrats agree on, but the rhinos that lead the legislature have a different take because so much of their funding comes from these organizations, so they don't have to go back and raise money in their district. And so I have I guess a bee in my bonnet about all this stuff that we do with Starbucks and Whataburger. Meanwhile, mom and pop, coffee shops and hamburger joints are basically being taxed, and their revenue is being taken to be given to their competition so that they can subsidize the building of corporate offices and things of that nature. And so I think the Republican Party leadership has lost its way when they pit large corporations that are already very affluent against Tennessee small business owners with these types of incentives. And finally, same thing with the Super Bowl. You bring the Super Bowl for a weekend to a town, and that's all well and good for the Super Bowl, I suppose. But all the eateries, entertainment venues, and places of that nature, when all that money gets sucked into those venues, and further, the weeks surrounding those events, typically restaurants and other places report that they've got some of the slowest business of the year because people don't want to come downtown and fight the traffic. And so there are a lot of unintended consequences that happen.
I didn't think about that, but that makes sense.
It's the small business owners are the ones that bear the brunt. Like, for example, when Riverbend used to come downtown, all the restaurants downtown were like, we might as well close up, because all the locals, like, they won't come down for the week. And you have a lot of people that come to the festival and eat at the festival, but they, fail to eat at the restaurants and entertainment venues around there. So always something to keep in mind.
Well, and you said, the majority of constituents are against the stadium. I'm guessing you're talking about government funding of the stadium. They probably are okay if they want to do it privately, right? If the team wants to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just if you wanted to open up any kind of entertainment venue, whether it be for music or a kid's bouncy park or whatever else, like, you can't go to Bill Lee and ask for a bunch of money unless you start sending a lobbyist up there and start putting PAC checks into accounts. You can probably get it done then. But it's not a Republican. It's not consistent with the Republican Party platform, and it's not what GOP primary voters want, nor Democrats in most cases. So I would love to see a gubernatorial candidate that would take a stand on this, but I doubt we'll find one outside of Monty Fritts.
Speaking to Brandon Lewis, he is the founder of the Tennessee Conservative. Want to move on to another story here. You have Tennessee secures final victory against the Biden administration's Title IX gender ideology rules. which is good. This was a long fight. Tennessee led the way in a lot of this, and glad to see a final victory here.
Yeah, Skrmetti has been great compared to the last attorney general we had. And him and a coalition of other states basically brought this to the United States District Court in the Eastern District, and it blocked the regulations from taking place. And then in 2025, the court ruled that the rules were illegal and unconstitutional and struck them down nationwide. And so this is why so often when you'll see rhinos will say, well, we can't do that. It's against federal precedent. Well, the reason that so many of these laws are brought that are against federal precedent is so that the cases can be retried and the laws can be changed nationwide. So often the passing of legislation is so that Attorney General John Skrmetti can go to bat and say, hey,
Right.
things have changed, like taxpayer funded illegal immigration. People are like, well, there's this ruling that says that you have to do it. Well, that was back when, it wasn't the problem that it is today, and the Supreme Court makeup was different. And so the ones that stand against things like that going into law really are failing to see the long-term view that things like this happen, and it has nationwide effect.
Well, and abortion's the best example of that, right?
Yeah.
Overturning Roe v. Wade, that was what they did. They passed laws knowing it went against Roe v. Wade, but eventually in the future, they could fight it again, and Roe v. Wade was overturned.
Yeah, and you see Republicans in Tennessee show their true colors. People like Esther Haynes Helton, who's out of Eastridge here, and Senator Briggs. They both basically said the reason we voted for it is because we never thought that it would happen with the protections that they voted in. And then after they pass, they bring legislation to try to weaken it.
Right.
And so there's a whole lot of fair weather conservatives who, when they think nothing's going to happen and they can get a check mark they can put on a mailer, they'll do it. But then when the law comes to a grinding halt, they reverse positions because they never really believed it in the first place. And so attacking these things in the courts, starting with the legislation and then appealing those things often leads to better outcomes. Hope that the legislature will look at that in more of the view moving forward.
Speaking with Brandon Lewis of the Tennessee Conservative, one more story I want to get to here. Very curious your take on this. There is a conservative Tennessee representative, Monty Fritts, who is calling for an immediate suspension of the state sales tax on fuel and food. I brought this up because of the war in Iran. We could at least do it temporarily. Georgia has done it temporarily. And most people said, yeah, that's great, never going to happen. I was like, they had time during the special session, but they don't want to give up that money. But what do you think about this?
Yeah, so it would be one thing if we were in this inflationary economy where so many things like gasoline and groceries have gone through the roof. And it's hurting Trump in Tennessee. We see it in the numbers. Yep. It's hurting Trump's approval numbers. As the economy goes, so goes the presidency is the general rule. We saw COVID become a disruption, and that is Joe Biden miraculously got 84 million votes, more than any other president before. And the reason that Monty is pushing this is because revenue collection reports sent in to the Department of Finance and Administration show that there's a significant over collection of revenues.
Oh.
And if they're over collecting our tax dollars and we're in an economic crunch, it would be great to give taxpayers in Tennessee some relief and be good stewards of those resources instead of, taking that money and peddling into corporate welfare or whatever other bloated pork projects that they're trying to do to get after the PAC dollars up there. It would be fantastic to see this. So Monty has been very good, probably the best candidate that's running as far as proper messaging. Does he have the campaign apparatus to win? Not that I have seen. However, I'm glad we at least have one voice out there talking about this stuff, and I hope the other candidates will join in.
Mm-hmm. I talked about it too because Georgia, it's nice. I've been getting gas in Georgia because it's a lot cheaper because they suspended it, and we're just talking about something that's temporary. And now you're talking about, well, they have a lot of extra money, so we could afford it. So that argument's kind of gone too about, oh, we can't afford it. So I think
you never know. It's money rules politics more than anything else. It is the reason that things happen, and so I'm sure a lot of these senators and reps and governor are looking at this, thinking about what pet projects they could push through with the extra revenue, when the right thing to do really is to
Yeah,
relieve the taxpayers.
right. Brandon Lewis is with the Tennessee Conservative. See this interview there tomorrow. Read all his stuff, TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Follow them on social media as well. Brandon, always appreciate you. We'll talk to you again next time.
Thanks, Yaffee. See you soon.